Under No Nation, that's Goat. Grandaddy before that. AM 180 on 6 Music. And I'm really delighted now to be joined on the show by Suede's Brett Anderson. Hi, Brett.
Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Good, thank you, mate. Congratulations on the brilliant new album, Autofiction.
Thank you. Yeah, no, very, very proud of it. Actually, it's we kind of spent many years writing it.
Yeah.
It sounds like quite a kind of carefree sort of like sort of record, but it took quite a lot of care to get it sounding that carefree, if that makes any sense. But very proud of how it's turned out, actually. Yeah, thank you. I
was with you in Manchester when you found out that the album charted at number 2. How did that feel, the chart position not being with me?
Yeah, that felt great. I mean, these kind of things, you know, they sort of do matter. You know, it's kind of odd. It sounds a bit superficial, but you know, there's a kind of momentum with this record, and the chart position was a really nice sort of validation of how people have responded to it. So it did feel really good, actually. That was a nice day, and it was nice to show. I remember it was your birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I was with you because you were doing a series of in-stores, and I did a Q&A with you at HMV in Manchester. And thanks very much for the card and the champagne. Fans clearly loving the album, and you say it has a kind of carefree feel. How do you think it ranks and fits in with your back catalogue?
Oh, that's so hard to say. I mean, it's really hard, I think, when you've just releasing an album, it's hard to really judge it. I'd say, so like, ask me in kind of 6 months' time, and I'll be able to sort of place it in the ranking order. Do you know what I mean? I think in a way, even though it's a rock record, it's sort of unlike any rock record we've made. You know, the first 3 records were definitely rock records, but this has got a different kind of feel. I think a lot of it is to do with Richard, the guitar player. His sort of personality is really coming out on this record, and all his influences are really sort of showing through. All this sort of post-punky stuff like Peel and Susie and The Cure and stuff like that is kind of coming through for the first time, and that's what gives it a different kind of flavour. It kind of gives it a sort of a different sort of version of a Suede rock record. But it's difficult to kind of like place it where I'd see the other records. I've got a lot of love for the early stuff, and I've got a lot of love for some of the later records we've made since we reformed as well. But all I can say is I'm really incredibly proud of the record, and I think it's a good record. So.
In terms of live, big anthems on the new one, like She Still Leads Me On and 15 Again, and Personality Disorder, which I'm going to play in a moment. They're going to become mainstays in your sets, won't they?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I love that we're kind of making some of the best music of our career right now, sort of 30 years into the career, which is, I think, quite unusual. But for some reason, it's just turned out that way, and kind of long may it continue. So I love those songs. We've played the album a few times all the way through. In fact, I think you were there when we did it at the Deaf Institute back in September.
Yeah.
And it really kind of works as a whole piece, actually. It's a really exciting record to play. So I think some of those songs will just stay in the set and just be, hopefully, you know, they'll just be kind of mainstays in the set. It'd be nice to think so. I mean, it's great playing old stuff, but for me, the exciting thing about being in a band is making new music. And I couldn't really do Suede if we were just doing kind of like hits from the 90s. That would be a bit depressing. So I love playing the old stuff like Animal Nitrate and things like that, of course, but if that's all we were doing, I think I'd go a bit insane. So it's making new music and making this album has been a fantastic thing. Yeah.
You mentioned the Deaf Institute. That night, the energy on stage and in the crowd was really incredible. How did it feel? Did it bring back memories of your early days as a band?
Yeah, it did. We sort of deliberately played like tiny little places, the kind of places that we probably would have played in 1991 or whatever, and it does really bring back memories. And you know, the sticky floors and the coming off stage with your ears ringing kind of thing. I love being really close to the audience and having that sort of tactile connection with them, and you know, the front row being literally just, you know, right in front of you. I just love that connection is amazing.
You really look like you were having the time of your life.
Yeah, no, I just love it. I do really love those little venues, and you know, as you get sort of older and more successful, you kind of end up playing bigger places, and you kind of get further and further away from the audience, and sometimes that can be great. You know, you can play huge festivals and the energy there, when you get it right, can be amazing. But there's nothing quite like being almost like on top of the audience and having that sort of tactile kind of flow of energy between the audience and the band, and that's so important for Suede to make a show work these days, you know.
Brett, stay there, if you would, and we'll talk some more after the brand new single from Autofiction. This is Personality Disorder. Personality Disorder. It's new off the new Suede album Autofiction, and Brett Anderson from Suede is my special guest this afternoon. Brett, you used to write your lyrics on a typewriter, didn't you? Do you still do that?
Well, I've still got the typewriter. It's a bit broken though, so it's more of a kind of like a prop in my writing room. So I have to admit I'm kind of like do most on a laptop or my phone or whatever these days. You know, it's just more convenient. But I love that thing of sort of sitting there and clacking away on a typewriter. There's nothing quite like it. You feel like Ernest Hemingway or something like that. You know.
Is there anything that you miss about your life in the 90s when the band really exploded?
Oh, I mean, you know, that time when it all happened for us was a really magical time, and in a way that can never happen again, no matter how much you sort of like try and, you know, kind of like orchestrate it or whatever. That's never going to happen again. That rush of excitement. You know, in 1991 we were kind of on the dole, and I was eating baked beans out of cans and stuff like that. And in 1992. We were on the cover of every music paper in the country, and that massive shift from one extreme to another is incredibly exciting, and you're never going to get that back. But and of course that's a wonderful way to sort of spend your years in your 20s. I would really recommend it to anyone. I'm not really nostalgic for it. In my life has changed and moved on, and thankfully so. I don't really want to be sort of chasing those times again in lots of ways, you know. Yeah, of course, occasionally I'll think back to those days and remember them very fondly, but I'm not sort of chasing them, really.
They weren't always the best of times for you, were they?
No, not at all. There was lots of dark times, like there are in anyone's lives, you know, but it's easy to look back on them in a very sort of nostalgic way. What I've tried to do with Autofiction is very much try and portray what it feels like to be a man of 55. Even though it's a rock record, it's not from the perspective of a man in his 20s anymore. And there's lots of songs on the new album that are very much about the kind of anxieties and the challenges of being middle-aged, effectively.
Have you learnt anything about yourself making this album?
Probably not. I think you go through life making the same mistakes over and over again, don't you? Yeah, okay, I suppose what I've learned in a broad sense is to sort of embrace your flaws. And that's a lesson I've learned slowly over the years, to not try and be perfect. And one of my favourite things about Autofiction is the fact that it kind of like almost, it flaunts its imperfections. I think that's quite nice. And I think music, as I get older, I increasingly can't really stand music that sounds like it's made by machines or computers. I love music that sounds like it's made by human beings, and human beings have got defects and they have got faults, and I think it's important to sort of let that shine through. When
the Suede album, your debut album, came out in March of 1993, you said that the album held up a cracked mirror to John Major's Britain, reflecting an image of a broken, indifferent world. Brett, what do you think Autofiction is a product of, and what does it reflect?
Well, I think it reflects my life as a 55-year-old man, or hopefully it does. That's the plan. I don't want to kind of like project a sort of political context onto it, because it's a very sort of personal record in lots of ways. It's very much about my life and my sort of anxieties at this stage in my life. So I'd say it's kind of about me now, really.
You've got dates coming up in the States with the Manics. Stay Beautiful was a year before you had a hit with Metal Mickey. Have your paths crossed a lot through the years?
Yeah, the Manics, we played, they supported us on a big European tour in, 1994. So we've sort of done this before. And they were always really nice people, and, you know, I've got a lot of respect for them. And we just, I can't remember who came up with the idea, but it was sort of some bright spark thought it'd be a great idea to get together with the Manics and play in the States. And really looking forward to it, actually. I can't think of a band that I'd rather be playing with, because they're great people and fantastic band, of course, with a great heritage. And in lots of ways, they're sort of in a similar sort of mould to Suede, I think. We've been through lots of kind of challenges as a band, and we've kind of come through it, and we're sort of still standing somehow.
Brilliant co-headline tour for sure. You're then going to be touring here in your own right in March of next year. Will we see Suede on festival bills next summer, Brett?
I'd like to think so, yeah, absolutely. You never quite know. It's never really the band's choice with these things. You know, the kind of like offers come in or don't come in, depending on, you know, all sorts of things. But yeah, of course, you know, I just love playing live. I, you know, as I get older, strangely, I kind of enjoy it more. I kind of thought it would be the opposite. I thought I'd kind of like, you know, but I kind of love it now. So yeah, absolutely. Always willing to get up there and shake my booty.
Excellent. Brett, on a personal note, finally, thank you so much for providing a soundtrack to most of my adult life.
Oh, Chris, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank
Seriously.
you. Thank you for listening.
What was it that headline once said? The best new band in Britain? Well, it feels like the best new band in Britain are back, and back with a vengeance. Brett Anderson, thank you so much for coming on the show this afternoon.
Thank you, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope beat. Step two.